What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and I'm just going to come out and say someone suggested it, and I think I kind of like it, that I may possibly just gravitate away from the Top 10 Tuesday moniker and just go with either Top 10 or Ted's Top 10, so we can keep the alliteration there. So that way I'm not bound to having something come out every day on Tuesday. But anyway, we are continuing with our magic item-based series. So this is the top 10 magic items for Warlocks. If you want to see what the rules and specifics are for that, stay tuned. So if you've seen this series, anything in this series before, you're familiar with what I'm going to say. But the specifics are, we're only going to be covering up to very rare magic items here, so nothing of the legendary category, usually because most people don't get to a point where they'll get a legendary item in their game, and if so, there's usually not a whole bunch for everybody. We're also not going to be covering anything consumable like potions and scrolls, because you can usually have as many as you are allowed to purchase based on the gold that your DM provides to you. We're also not going to cover any magic items that you can use and then they run out of charges and they don't come back, like a Chime of Opening, which has so many charges, and when the last one's expend, it just becomes inert, because that doesn't kind of provide evergreen content in that way. And we're also going to ignore the tomes and manuals that increase an ability score by 2, because regardless of what ability score you use it on, it will always be beneficial for everybody. Because who's going to say no to a free +2 to an ability score that also happens to be non-attunement? We're also going to make this subclass agnostic. I know that's a little tricky because you could argue that Hexblade is kind of an own subset of a class in and of itself, but this will be items and things that will be useful regardless of the class that you are playing, or the subclass that you're playing. So that way, regardless of what comes out in the future, or if you're playing one Warlock and go to play a different one, this will be useful to you all around. It also should be noted that this and any other video in this series should be paired with the first video that kicked off the 2022 revision of this series, top 10 magic items for all classes, because those are applicable obviously to all classes. And then if you're looking for more Warlock specific, you would use this video. I will also say I did make a separate playlist just for these 2022 magic items. So if you want to watch just the ones, I have a whole long Top 10 Tuesday playlist that's been going for years. But if you're looking to add just the more recent 2022 revisions, which I would recommend because there have been significant magic item improvements and magic items released since my original series from like 2019, 2020. So anyway, with all that being said, let's dive in. Number 10. The Imbued Wood Focus, specifically the Shavarran Birch Focus. This is the only common magic item I think I've put on one of these lists this go around. It is attunement. It comes to us from Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron, but you can see what it does is essentially this it is attunement, but it is common, so the chances of you acquiring one should be pretty realistic given the fact that, like, I think it's 50 gold pieces to buy a common magic item, and because they're common, the argument that your DM should let you get one is pretty substantial. But here's what you get for that one attunement slot. It says when you cast a damage-dealing spell using this item as your spellcasting focus, you gain a +1 bonus to 1 damage roll of the spell, provided the damage type is associated with the item's wood. Shavarran Birch works for force damage. You, as a Warlock, more likely than not will have access to and probably be using Eldritch Blast, one of, if not the best cantrip in the game, definitely the best for damaging. And this allows you to get a +1 bonus to the force damage, depending on where, if you're able to tack on Agonizing Blast on top of that, you could be adding a decent amount of damage from very early on, as again, acquiring a common magic item should be common. Number 9. Glamoured Studded Leather. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of great options for light armor in this game, and in 5th edition for magic armor for light armor wearers, which kind of sucks. There is a lot of armor. There's a lot of heavy armor and a lot of medium or heavy armor, and a bunch that have sort of a variability where they can be like some medium or some heavy, but you really have like, I think 3 options, I could be wrong on this, of light armor that has any kind of magical properties aside from just traditional +1, +2, +3 armor. So the Glamoured studded leather armor is rare, and it is a +1 studded leather armor. So as it stands right there, you're with that +1, the equivalency of mage armor, and given your limited spell slot usage and spell selection, and to a lesser extent, limited number of invocations, having Glamoured studded leather basically saves you from having to take armor, I think it's Armor of Shadows that gives you free mage armor. And it has a little bit of a disguise capability to it as well. You can use a bonus action to speak the armor's command word and cause the armor to assume the appearance of a normal set of clothing or some other kind of armor. You decide what it looks like, color, style, accessories, blah, blah, blah. I always basically let my players essentially do whatever they want with their Glamour studded leather, right? If they want to, like it says, to a normal set of clothes or any other set of armor. So you could, in theory, make it look like, I guess I was going to say like plate mail, but it's just a chest piece. So like maybe a breastplate or something if you want people to think you're wearing medium armor. But I also basically just let them reskin their appearance whenever they want. Like if they decide they want to just be wearing regular traveler's clothes or like a fancy elegant gown or what have you. I don't think that's much of a stretch. It already has the glamour capability in it. And hey, it's in the basic rules and it's non-attunement. So again, I think there's maybe 2 other light armors and they're both leather, not even studded leather. So this is the best one we have right now. Hopefully going forward, we'll get some new light armors as well. Number 8. The Staff of the Ivory Claw. This attunement rare magic item comes to us from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. And it is a rare magic item, so it's on a lesser rarity scale. But while holding it, you get a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls. Again, not trying to pigeonhole your Warlock into only using Eldritch Blast, but you have it, and it seems like at least potentially going forward into 1 D&D that it's going to become a class feature for you. So a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls is useful as well, depending even if you choose other cantrips. And whenever you score a critical hit with a spell attack, that target takes an extra 3d6 radiant damage. It's nice that that extra 3d6 radiant damage is a freebie. You don't have to activate it. You don't have to use charges. And the fact that, again, if you're using Eldritch Blast, you have multiple blasts per use with the cantrip. So as such, that's multiple opportunities to potentially trigger a critical hit. Number 7. The Cauldron of Rebirth from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This is a very rare attunement magic item that is only attunable by a druid or a warlock, and this one's just kind of fun, and it allows you to do some things as a warlock you might not typically be able to do, or you may want to save spell slots for other things. So first of all, it functions and is usable as a component for the scrying spell. So you've got that going for you. But when you finish a long rest, you can use the cauldron to create a potion of greater healing. That lasts for 24 hours or until it's consumed, but this essentially is, in a minor way, a way for you as a warlock to get access to a little bit of healing, whether for yourself or the party. As an action, you can cause the cauldron to grow to large size, big enough for a medium creature to fit in it. You can revert it to normal size as an action, and then it'll just pop anybody out nearby. If you place the corpse of a humanoid into the cauldron and cover it with 200 pounds of salt, which only costs 10 gold pieces, for at least 8 hours, the salt is then consumed and the creature returns to life as if by the Raise Dead spell at the next dawn, which is, again, one of the only ways you're going to be able to do it. And potentially, if this is big enough that you can hop inside it, this could potentially be mobile cover for you as well, because normally when it's not expanded, it is tiny size. Number 6. Wand of the War Mage. Again, we talked about being able to attack with cantrips and things. Wand of the War Mage gives you a bonus to spell attack rolls, which, again, the very rare version of this is a +3. So a +3 version to your spell attack, a +3 to your spell attack rolls, and it allows you to ignore half cover when making a spell attack. Cover, I found in my games, is either present all the time or almost not at all. It's whether or not you as the DM want to have your monsters think intelligently enough to hide behind things, or if your players use it. And while it's not as good as some of the other things on this list, nothing's stopping you from having... It says while you're holding it, so you could hold it and then still use another wand or a staff. And if you were able to get a couple of the items on this list, you could really stack up those bonuses to hit. Number 5. The Voyager Staff, this is a very rare attunement magic item that comes from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. And first of all, it has the benefit of being a +1 quarterstaff, so you can use this in melee for attack or damage with that +1. It also gives you a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls, so you've got that going for you as well. And it's a really good utility staff because, again, as a warlock, you are very limited in your spell selection and even more limited in your spell slot usage. So the name of the game for you as a general rule when it comes to magic items is things that will give you versatility, options, AoE, and just more uses of spells that you wouldn't normally have access to. And I do feel like the Voyager Staff does a pretty good job. It has 10 charges. While holding it, you can expend it and use an action to expend a charge to cast a couple of different things. And then it's Banishment for 4 charges, Blink for 3 charges, Misty Step for 2 charges, Pass Wall for 5 charges, or Teleport for 7. And it gets a d6 plus 4 charges back daily at dawn. And then if you spend the last one, roll a 20 and a 1, it's destroyed. The only potential downside I see to this, and this is something we've seen before, is it does say you can use an action. Now, technically, Misty Step is a bonus action to cast. But according to this, I guess if you're using it via this staff, it would use your action to do so. I do wonder if it should just say you can cast the spell like utilizing, using the charges and not like specify whether it's an action or a bonus action so that it reverts back to the base that's required in the spell itself. Again, there are other spells that work in the opposite direction of this. For example, like I've said in the past, the Necklace of Prayer Beads allows you to cast things as a bonus action that are normally an action, so I guess that's just kind of the trade-off that we make. Number 4. The Pearl of Power. This is an uncommon magic item that comes to us. It is attunement from the base rules. And basically, while you have it, you can use an action to speak its command word and regain a expended spell slot. If it's a 4th level or higher spell slot, it is now a new 3rd level slot. But you, as a warlock, while you do have access to the ability to short rest and get all of your spell slots back, there are instances where a 6-second action to get a spell slot back could be very beneficial for you, whether that's in or out of combat. In theory, you could, as an action, activate your Pearl of Power to get a spell slot back, and then you could, in theory, in that same turn, use a bonus action to cast the spell using the slot you just got back. Again, it would be limited to only 3rd level as opposed to whatever your normal spell slot would be. But either way, this is pretty useful, and it's one of the limited options you have to get spell slots back in combat or without having to take a short rest. Number 3. The Staff of Power. This is a very rare attunement magic item that comes to us from the base rules, and this is one of the best non-legendary staves out there for any kind of spellcaster. But in this, I guess really specifically for sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. So first of all, it's a +2 quarterstaff, so that has its own benefits there. It also provides you a +2 bonus to your armor class, saving throws, and spell attack rolls. Again, potentially even if you had multiple stabs, you could use this to just really chain up that to hit bonus. It also has 20 charges, which it can be used to cast a variety of spells. And as I've already said, variety is the name of the game when it comes to magic items for a warlock. You can hit somebody with the staff and choose to expend a charge to deal a d6 force damage, or expend one of the charges to cast one of the following spells. Cone of Cold for 5, Fireball at 5th level for 5, Glow of Invulnerability for 6, Hold Monster for 5, Levitate for 2, Lightning Bolt at 5th level for 5, Magic Missile for 1, Ray of Enfeeblement for 1, or Wall of Force for 5. It also has the Retributive Strike ability, where you can basically choose to break the staff, and then it essentially explodes and does damage equal to the number of charges it had left. And there's a chance that you get ported to another plane of existence, completely avoiding the damage. That's really kind of like a last-ditch, oh shit, because the wand is essentially, or the staff is destroyed, more or less, after the fact. So it's really if you need that damage quick, and it's kind of usually, I would imagine this is like an end game finale style thing you would do to save yourself, the party, or the world. Probably not something you want to do early on, because you would have just severely limited the amount of damage and other things you could do. Number 2. The Rod of the Pact Keeper. This is a attunement for warlocks only. comes to us from the Dungeon Master's Guide, and it is a variety, a varied attunement, right? We have the uncommon one version is +1, rare is +2, very rare is +3. So similar to a lot of the things we've seen on this list so far that give you a bonus to your spell attack rolls, this also gives you a bonus to your spell save DC. So not only does this potentially, if you have the very rare version, gives you a +3 bonus to your spell attack rolls, but also to the saving throw DCs of your Warlock spells. So this is pretty substantial here. And if that wasn't enough, you can regain 1 Warlock spell slot as an action while holding the rod once per long rest. So similar to what we talked about with the Pearl of Power, this has that same functionality built into it. However, it's not limited to only being a 3rd level spell slot. It can be any Warlock spell slot. So this is probably one of the crowning jewel magic items if you're able to attain one, because you can get the slot back, it boosts your spell save DC and your attack rolls all rolled into one. So actually, if you have just one of these, you could potentially eliminate some of the other items we've covered on this list already, or use them in conjunction to chain up bonuses to spell attack rolls. Number 1. Probably surprising no one, the Illusionist Bracers once again make it to the number 1 slot for the Warlock. This very rare attunement magic item comes to us from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and as I've said a couple of times, you have access to Eldritch Blast, one of the best damaging cantrips in the game, and Illusionist Bracers let you double down on that by, while wearing these bracers, whenever you cast a cantrip, you can use a bonus action on the same turn to cast that cantrip a second time. Now, the reason that this didn't appear on something like the Sorcerer is you do have a lot more spell slots as a Sorcerer, and realistically, you'll be probably burning through your spell slots. You may cast cantrips, sure, but you may have other abilities and other spell slots that you want to use. A Warlock, because of the way it's designed, is one class that from level 1, you'll be probably casting a cantrip pretty frequently. All the way up to level 20, you will probably also be casting that same cantrip, again, it being Eldritch Blast. So when you get to higher levels, if you don't remember how Eldritch Blast works, it adds additional shots that come out of it. So I think it's at 17th level. You shoot 4 Eldritch Blast beams. With the Illusionist Bracers on your turn with an action and a bonus action, you could now shoot 8 beams. And if you were to have some of the other things we've talked about on here that boost up your spell attack roll, that could possibly boost out the damage if you crit or things of that nature, you really could do a lot with this. I guess if I had to pick just 3, if we're ignoring the original list and everything here, I would probably pick, for my 3 attunement slots, Illusionist Bracers, a +3 Rod of the Pact Keeper, and then if I'm really doubling down on Eldritch Blast, I would probably go with the Staff of the Ivory Claw to get me that +1 bonus to my attack roll, and then just the freebie opportunity for the 3d6 damage on a crit. If you tend to roll hot, that's probably pretty useful, but you would never go wrong by just choosing basically the top 3 of this list. The Illusionist Bracers, the +3 Rod of the Pact Keeper, and the Staff of Power, which is also going to give you bonuses to things like saving throws and AC. So that's actually almost better than having magic armor. It's just, again, that's 3 very rare magic items. The potential of you having all 3 in your campaign is pretty slim. But hey, if your DM likes to throw a lot of high-powered stuff at you, which I get it, I do it as well. I like to outfit my players with a lot of high-powered magical items so that I can throw more difficult encounters at them and really just beat them into the ground, but allow them to survive, which I enjoy. I enjoy using difficult and making difficult combats. I like watching the players struggle, but then ultimately succeed. And I've really only ever had, I think, 1 TPK. So, with the amount of, things I throw at my players, 1 singular TPK over all these years of DMing, I think that's a pretty good ratio, right? I've had a lot of tense battles that get a little close, but just watching the excitement and the relief when someone deals the final blow is a lot. So I like to give my players a lot of cool magic items and stuff early on and frequently. So anyway, folks, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this top 10 magic items for the Warlock. Next week will be the top 10 magic items for the Wizard, and then at that point we will have formally concluded this series with all of the actual 5th edition classes. However, I will do a following week with the top 10 magic items for the Blood Hunter, because many people seem to consider that a secret, also official class, even though it's not. But also the last time I reviewed the Blood Hunter was before they made the 2020 update. So like I think it went from a wisdom-based class to an intelligence or wisdom-based class, which severely changes up what some of the items are. And we've also received a lot of interesting magic items since then. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me and the channel. And I will see you all next time.